Hello and welcome to Covering It All, where we cover all the information you need to know about custom window coverings. Covering It All is a production of The Blind Broker in Kansas City. Today, as always, we're joined by lovely design experts, John Wallace and Bree Atkins, here to answer all your window covering related questions. How are you guys doing today?
Wonderful.
Great. Lovely rainy day.
It is rainy here at the Blind Broker studio in Mission, yeah.
At the Blind Broker.
Wonderful. We have a kind of a drapery themed episode today. A lot of drapery questions coming in. So we thought, hey, let's bundle them together and just talk about drapery. The first question comes in from Cindy. She asks, why is custom drapery so expensive? Why not DIY this?
We get that question a lot. DIY is always fun, but with draperies, you really kind of got to know what you're doing. There's something about getting the rod just the right perfect level and having the drapes hit the floor just right or not be too far off the floor. So there's quite a bit of measuring involved. A lot of times when you buy stuff off the shelf at your local retail store, you're getting fabrics that are, just cut off of a machine. They're not, very high-end fabrics, that they're lots of different designs. But if you want something really custom and you want particular pleat styles and you want the fabric to be just a ½ inch off the floor, there's really some neat things that can be done with custom that you just can't do DIY. Hardware is a huge deal because you're going to get, a really cheap set of hardware at the store that's telescoping. It's very affordable, but because it's telescoping, it's two rods that aren't the same size. So when you're trying to pull those drapes across the rod, they're getting caught, and that drives people insane. So I hear that a lot, that they just want something to work right and to look good. So that's where the custom comes in. You can DIY all day, but if you want it to look professional, that's why you hire a professional.
And it's mostly the knowledge aspect of it, knowing where that drapery should go. I can't tell you how many jobs that we've done that have drapery already in the room and in the setup and everything like that. And they're just like, it feels so small in this room because they mounted it right up top right there. They didn't account for stack back or anything. So the whole room just feels so closed off. And a lot of times people will just measure to the top of the trim. They're like, 84 will work or 96 will work or anything like that. And then when we come out there and fix it, we're raising that up quite a bit. We know what obstacles to look for. We know how to measure. So it, like you mentioned, it just barely comes above the floor right there, or puddled up if that's what you like. We can do whatever you want.
Don't see that much anymore, but
definitely a little bit not as popular as it was, but I can see that coming back in too. Mm-hmm. But just the knowledge really of how to get it to look
the tricks
perfect.
Yeah, so we're talking pleat styles, we're talking custom rods, we're talking specific heights and padding and adjustments like that. That all goes into what would make it.
Opacities too. We can do thermal liners on those. We can do blackout. We can do the standard light filtering on those. You get a nicer quality fabric, quality material. And a better warranty, because the ones at Walmart or Target or wherever don't have a warranty. And better hardware too, especially if you're wanting something that functions.
Yeah, like a motorized drapery.
Yeah.
Yep.
Those motorized draperies are
pretty awesome.
This is so cool. They are so cool.
Nice. Okay. Amanda asks us, and I think this is kind of indicative of a lot of people that want drapery, but when they're asked about what they want to do, they just don't know what to do. What are common drapery configurations? What are some of the defaults?
Ideally, in a perfect situation, you're going to have tons of headroom and tons of wall space and nothing impeding it, no bookshelves in the way, no chairs in the way. Yep. It rarely happens that way, but headroom is one of the biggest things that I look for because, again, when you have a drapery that's crammed right up against that top part of the trim, that whole room can feel so much smaller.
You lose so much light out of the window.
It makes everything tiny. It gives you a nice cozy feel, which some people would like in their bedrooms, but not want necessarily in their living room. So headroom's a key thing, and especially if we're doing functional draperies, I always account for the stack back size and let them know how big that is stacking back. So if we're doing a split draw, it's going to be this much on that side, this much on that side, and especially if we're limited on wall space, that fabric would all be right in front of the window. So there's very rarely you see, I wouldn't say rarely, You don't see a perfect situation as often as I would like, but you do see it. The house that I was at this morning, about 12 inches of headroom, and each side had 30 inches of wall space. And I'm
Plenty of room to work with.
I want to take a picture of this because this setup is a drapery dream.
Yeah.
It is perfect. Everything would work flawless in there. But there's lots of different configurations, lots of different ways we can treat it. We're just kind of limited to what the house is.
Yeah. And I see a lot of people wanting a functional drape, something that they can close. Like if it's a bedroom and they want a blackout drape, but the fabric that they bought at the store doesn't quite close. They have to go buy an extra panel, and now they've got 3 panels and it's not right. So having the custom measuring and making sure that they do overlap and that they do cut out the light. A traverse rod, sometimes people don't even know what that is, and that is so you can bypass brackets that support a really wide drapery. So there's some little technicalities that we have to be aware of when somebody wants something that's going to work really smoothly and not run into a bracket when they want to close it, and then they've got to figure out how to make that work. So it's one of those things where we get our eyes on it and we can talk with the customer about what they're trying to accomplish and make sure that it gets done that way.
I hear the term functional and decorative from time to time. What is the difference between a functional drapery and a decorative drapery? Can you not move a decorative drapery?
Not technically. I mean, you can move them to some extent, but decorative is really just enough fabric to frame the outside edges of the window. If you want a functional drape, you need a lot more fabric to get to the middle of the window. So you're going to be moving it quite a bit. A lot of people have grommet drapes in their house, and grommets technically are supposed to be a decorative drape. They're not really meant to be drugged back and forth, because once you pull a grommet across, the fabric flattens out. It's not as pretty. So they're always meant to be dressed and left alone. A functional drape is typically pleated on a rod that has a track in it so that it glides instead of dragging it across the rod on rings. So rings are another thing that people typically use, but they're meant to be just kind of decorative on the side. You're not really supposed to mess with the rings. You want them to be equally spaced and very pretty all the time. I kind of say rings are the jewelry of the hardware. You want it to always look nice and pretty. So decorative is just kind of left alone, and then functional is actually daily use and wanting it to function properly.
I always put it as if you use, especially grommet top, that's the number one thing I see that people actually use daily.
Yeah.
If you have to stack it up and then dress it every single time that you do it, it's not technically a functioning rod. It's a decorative, it's not technically a functioning drape. It's done on a decorative rod. Yeah. So you always need to close it, dress
fix it,
makes everything look good, versus a traverse rod. You just grab those, close them. They're always at the same fullness right there. And then you close, and when you open them up like that, you always have consistency kind of in the pleats area there. So those are more designed to be drawn every single day as opposed to sliding those over. An issue that I've come up with many times, I'll go to a customer's house, their whole drapery rod's falling out of their wall, and that's because they have high up windows. They're used grommet top, so they're grabbing it and pulling it across like that, pushing that drapery rod down, and it just pops right out of the wall. Versus a traverse rod, you just grab the wand and slide it. So your point of access is a lot lower versus having to get up there and kind of maneuver.
Or having
everything.
a baton that you can pull the drapes and not to drag the fabric.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of functionality considerations that need to be discussed to decide how are we actually using this fabric.
And especially someone that's been using a grommet top drapery as functional, once they get one that actually is designed to be a functional drape, it is a night and day difference. They're like, oh, why was I ever using grommet top?
Well, I think a lot of people just don't understand
that
the difference, what they're
using or what they're associating with a drapery is not designed to be maneuvered in the way that you're maneuvering it.
And grommet top is sold everywhere. So that's just kind of their go-to thing. So a lot of times people are like, drapery, all drapery is the same. Let me grab this and throw it up there and we're good.
Who knew how many options there were?
They have tons of issues with it. So
Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you for answering our questions today on this episode of Covering It All. If you have a question, leave it in a comment down below or write into us. And if you're in the Kansas City area and are a homeowner or designer, reach out to us. We'd love to help you find the perfect window covering.